What's up, everybody? Brian Ellwood here. Welcome back to the Virtual Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is episode 50, and I'm really excited for this episode. We've got actually our first guest ever on the Virtual Real Estate Investing Podcast, Mr. Larry Goins. How you doing, Larry?
What's up, man? How you been?
Man, I've been great.
That's awesome.
Excited to have you on here.
That's awesome, man. Thanks so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm really honored and excited that I would be your very first guest on your podcast. That's pretty cool.
I didn't think I'd get, quite a star like yourself as my first guest. I'm pretty fortunate.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's really cool. That's cool. Well, I'm really looking forward that all I got to share about buying HUD houses for pennies on the dollar. It's a great topic you wanted to start it off with, and I'm really excited to be able to share it.
Awesome. So before we dive into that, do you want to give listeners a quick snapshot of your backstory and kind of tell them a little bit about yourself?
Oh, yeah, man. I'll be glad to. I've been buying houses for over 30 years, okay? I bought my very first house in 1986. It's kind of funny. I'm the HUD guy now, but it was an FHA non-qualifying assumable loan. Now, you don't know this because you're so young, right? How old are you?
33.
I've been buying houses since you were born, since you were this big.
I was two.
That's funny.
First house.
That's funny. But my very first deal was an FHA non-qualifying assumable loan. And you don't know this, but back in the 70s and even I think they ended it in 79, you could, if somebody got a house and they got an FHA loan and they wanted to sell that house, they could sell it to a new buyer, and all the new buyer had to do was fill out an application and sign their name, and they could assume that loan. They didn't have to qualify. They didn't pull their credit. They didn't do any of that, right? It was called an FHA non-qualifying assumable loan. So that was the very first house I bought, and you didn't even have to live in the house when you did that. You could buy the house and rent it out, which is what I did with my very first deal. So I kind of got the bug. I went to a seminar and got the bug. And, I just wish there was coaching and mentoring and stuff back when I got started. There wasn't even RIA groups back when I got started, real estate investor associations. But I've done a tremendous amount of real estate. I've done wholesaling, retailing, lease options. I've done short sales. I've done subject to. I've done multifamily. I've done commercial. I own the building I'm sitting in right now. We occupy about a third of it and lease out the rest of it. I've owned mobile home parks. Done seller financing and lease options. But what I really love, I love real estate day trading, which is wholesaling, and I love HUD houses, and I love lease options / seller financing. And that's kind of what I teach and what I do. We have a little mantra over here. We teach what we do, okay? If we don't do it, we don't teach it, right? But over the last 30 years, I've done just about everything there is with real estate. I think really the only thing I haven't done is self-storage. I've never owned a self-storage facility, but outside of that, I've done just about everything. I've owned Dollar General stores. I've owned Shoney's restaurants and many properties and commercial and a little bit of multifamily, not much, but just enough to say I've done it, I guess. All right.
Wow.
So I've done a lot of, but I've been through the ups and downs, Real estate is cyclical, so I've been through the ups and downs. I've made a lot of money, and I've lost a lot of money as well. And I tell people all the time, and you can appreciate this, I tell people all the time that if you do enough real estate, you will lose money on a deal. It's going to happen. You will lose money on a deal. The key is just get enough knowledge, right, and learn from your experiences, and make sure that if you make mistakes, they're small ones, and they're not very often, right?
Right. Wow. That's really impressive resume. I like that you've done so many types of investing. And I'm also curious because it seems like you really landed on HUD as one of your favorite investing strategies. So out of all the things you've tried, why is HUD so special?
Man, that's a great question. Well, the thing about HUD is there's no direct mail. There's no pay-per-click advertising. There's no bird dogs. There's no marketing. There's no bandit signs. There's none of that stuff, okay? With HUD, You go to their website, right? And you do have to have an agent submit the bid, and we'll get into that. But with HUD, it's all done on the computer. Everything is done on the computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with HUD is, even right now in today's market, and I have bought deals, right? I've bought deals in 12 different states. 12 different states. I've done deals, right? So, but I focus on the Carolinas. I'm in Lake Wiley, South Carolina, which is near Charlotte, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But I focus on the Carolinas, but I've done deals in 12 different states. And no matter where I live or where I work, and you're big about virtual investing, I know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm the same way. My very first deal that I did virtual investing, they didn't even call it virtual investing. Nobody even knew what virtual investing was. But I bought it and sold it, and I did all my business by phone, fax, FedEx, email, and internet, right? And then I figured out, man, I got to figure out how to do this again, right? So, but I love HUD houses because it's a daily auction. You put a bid in, there's no negotiating, no going back and forth. I mean, you don't have to fill out contracts right away until they accept your bid. And I love HUD.
So tell our listeners, just in case someone isn't clear on what a HUD home is, just real quick, what exactly is a HUD house?
Oh, great question. Well, a HUD house becomes a HUD house because somebody got an FHA loan. Now, FHA insures loans. They don't make loans. The government does not make loans. They insure loans. A bank like Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Chase, they will make a loan to a borrower based on FHA or HUD guidelines. And when they make that loan based on FHA or HUD guidelines, FHA will insure the loan. And a little bit of the payment that's being made each and every month by the borrower goes toward that insurance premium, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the borrower defaults, then the bank that made the loan contacts HUD and says, hey, we've got a loan in default. I need to cash in my insurance policy. And then they pay off the bank, and then HUD forecloses on the house. And then it becomes a HUD property.
Owned by the government.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So another question that I have, and I know our listeners have, or an objection to HUD homes is like, isn't it really competitive to buy deals, online via auction, et cetera? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I would love to. First of all, I want to share with you, I don't teach stuff that used to work years ago. I teach what I'm doing right now in today's market. And just to give you an idea, I think you and I talked about this offline earlier. We bought a house just last week. Well, we got it under contract last week. It was listed for $72,000. HUD accepted a bid of $39,000, right? And we're just going to wholesale that house for $49,000, $49,900, $50,000, right? And so right now in today's market, I'm buying houses at deep, deep discounts. Is that cool or what?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So there is a lot of competition, but there's a lot of things you need to know to be able to bid on a HUD house. For example, listen, Brian, I'm in the Charlotte MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area. I live in Lake Wiley, which is just across the state line from Charlotte, North Carolina. It's been over 3 years, probably closer to 4 years, since I bought a house in Charlotte. Now, I'm buying houses all over the Carolinas, right? But think about it. In Charlotte, there's a lot of investors. There's 2 or 3 investor meetings. They might have 100, 150, 200 people attend their meetings every month. There's a lot of investors fighting for that one same deal, right? Mm-hmm. I'm bidding on every house on HUD in North Carolina and every HUD house in South Carolina. And I can bid at 50, 40, 30% of list price. And I get a deal. When I get a deal, it's not a deal. It's a steal. Okay? I'm getting it at a deep, deep discount, right? But that house might be in Parkton, North Carolina, Grifton, North Carolina, Whiteville, South Carolina. It might be in Albany, Georgia, because I'm buying in Georgia now. So it's not going to be in a big city MSA, but it could be in a smaller town, a bedroom community, or a small town USA, right? And I'm typically buying houses within 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of me. Okay. So we're able to buy a house, get it at a deep, deep discount, and then we either wholesale that house, we add about $10,000 to $15,000 to it, and wholesale that house to either a fix and flip investor or a fix and rent investor or somebody that just wants to get a good deal and they're going to fix it up and move into it. They want to build some sweat equity, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's what we do. That's what we do. And the deals aren't right here in Lake Wylie or in Charlotte, but they're within driving distance typically.
Okay. So would you say the key to success with HUD, at least in today's market, is to look in those outlying areas where there's not tons of competition, crazy real estate bubbles, and all of that?
Well, that's a great, great question. And I'm going to answer this question this way. It's not that I look for the properties in those areas. I'm bidding on everything. I'm bidding on the houses in Charlotte. I'm bidding on the houses in Raleigh, North Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, the big cities in the state. It just so happens, if I'm bidding 25% or 35% or 40%, I'm bidding on all of them. It's just I'm getting the ones in the small towns because there's not anybody else bidding on the houses, right?
Right.
There's not, in a small town, they're not bidding on the houses, so it's not like HUD is saying, wow, well, we only got 10 bids this week. No, they got no bids this week, right? So a 25 or 35 or 45% bid is starting to look okay. Does that make sense?
It does. That's very interesting. You're getting me excited about this already. So the key is just then making regular, consistent offers.
Well, that's one of the keys. Say, first of all, HUD is a daily auction, okay? It's very important to realize this. HUD is a daily auction, and all bids are put in at HUDhomestore.com. That website, HUDhomestore.com, is the absolute only place that you can get a HUD house. There is nowhere else you can get a HUD house. Now, also, the bids must be put in by an agent with what's called an NAID number. That stands for National Identifier Number, okay? NAID number. So all you really need, right, is go to the website. You got to have an internet connection, and you need to have an agent that has an NAID number, right? And they'll put your bids in for you or let you put your bids in under their NAID number, right? You can be an unlicensed assistant, right? All agents or a lot of agents have an unlicensed assistant. There's nothing in the world wrong with them making you their assistant and you put in the bids for them, or you could hire them an unlicensed assistant and that assistant puts in all the bids. And it's just like found money for them when you get a deal. Make sense?
Wow. It does. And I guess because these offers are just going to the government, the agent doesn't risk losing credibility with tons of 25%, offers going out, because it's really just kind of, to them, it's just a numbers game, right? They're not.
That's exactly right.
Emotional situation, basically.
That's exactly right. Like, for example, when an agent puts in a bid on a HUD house, one of three things can happen, okay? Number one, nothing happens. If nothing happens and your agent doesn't hear back from HUD the following day, then your bid is simply expired and nobody has any further obligation. Because remember, HUD is a daily auction. You can bid on every house every day, right? Mm-hmm. The second thing that could happen is you could get a counter offer, okay? HUD could counter you, like maybe the house is listed for $100,000. Maybe you bid 40. They might counter at 70, okay? Now, if they counter, you can do one of four things, all right? You can do nothing, and the counter simply expires that day, right?
Okay.
Or you could counter back, right? You could counter back. Or three, you could submit an entirely new bid, just ignore the counter, submit a new bid, and the fourth thing you could do when you get a counter is accept it. Now you have a deal, okay? So that's the four things you can do if you get a counter. Now, and of the three things that can happen, right? Nothing, you get a counter. The third thing is they accept your bid. That's what we're all waiting for. When they accept your bid, they're going to send an email along with the digital paperwork. It's all done through DocuSign. It used to be you had to print it out, sign it in blue ink, and send it back. But now they use DocuSign. They've only been doing that about 6 months, right? So they send you the DocuSign, you sign everything, your agent signs everything, and then it goes right back to HUD's asset manager, because HUD hires an asset manager that hires a realtor to dispose of the property, okay? So those are the three things that can happen whenever you bid on a HUD house. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And talk about once you get your bid accepted, you do that paperwork.
Right.
How much time do they give you to close and all that kind of stuff? And
Awesome,
is there an inspection
awesome.
period? Can you back out of it? Like, how do you wholesale it? I'm kind of interested to know what you do in that period.
That's a great question. First of all, with the deposit, you're either going to put up a $500 deposit or a $1,000 deposit. If the bid is accepted up to $50,000, the deposit is $500. Anything over $50,000 is a $1,000 deposit. It's that way all across the United States. All right.
Okay.
So we typically do a 30-day close, right? But there is no inspection period if you're an investor. Which, by the way, I need to mention this. When a HUD house first goes on the market, now HUD wants to promote homeownership, right? So when a HUD house goes on the market, it's first available only to owner-occupied buyers. And that time frame might be 10 days or 15 days or 30 days, depending on how hot the market is, right? I've seen some that were 0 days. An investor could bid on it day one, right? But whenever you're bidding, you need to select buyer type. Buyer type, it could be owner-occupant, it could be investor, it could be good neighbor next door, and that just means if you're in law enforcement or firefighter or a teacher, then they'll give you a little bit of a discount on a house, but you have to live in it, right? Or it could be a government or nonprofit, or it could be a dollar home. HUD actually sells houses for $1, but don't get too excited because you don't want that house, okay? Trust me, you don't want that house. It's a house they couldn't sell, and even if you buy that house for $1, you have to fix it up and live in it, and you don't want to fix it up and live in it, okay? And they only sell houses for $1 that they can't get rid of, all right? And there's typically on HUD's website, there's only about anywhere from 1 to 5 houses in the entire United States that are available for $1, okay?
Okay.
So there's no inspection period. So as soon as we get a house under contract, we're going to send somebody out to look at it. We want to get pictures. In fact, we either send somebody out. We use a service called bpophotoflow.com and wegolook.com. They'll drive out to the house. They'll take pictures. They'll take 50, 100 pictures, whatever. If there's a stain on the ceiling, I want to see it, right? If there's a hole in the wall, I want to see it, okay? So we get all those pictures, and then we start marketing the property right away, right? We can't put it on the MLS. We can't put it on Zillow, right? But we can put out signs all around the area, not in the front yard because we don't own it yet. But we'll put out signs all over the neighborhood, right? And then we start getting calls, and we're looking for cash buyers. Most of the houses I buy, now don't get me wrong, I sold a house 2 weeks ago. We picked it up for 112 and we sold it for 145 or something like that. Wow. So, and that was a HUD house, and it was listed for 170, okay? So it was a great fix and flip. But most of the HUD houses I'm buying, I try to buy them where I can sell them at $50,000 or less. I pick up a lot of houses for $30,000 and $40,000. Now, I'll give you an idea of why I say that, okay? There's a lot more people running around that have $50,000 or less in the bank than have more than $50,000, right? A lot more people, right? So let me give you a quick example. We bought 2 houses from HUD about 3 weeks ago that we just closed on them, bought them, sold them. They were not side by side, but they were in the same neighborhood. They were actually on streets back to back, right? So I guess HUD was trying to get rid of both of these houses because they were in the same town, a little town called Grifton, North Carolina, right? I'd never even heard of Grifton before we bought these houses. So we got them under contract. One house we got under contract for in the 30s. Another house we got under contract in the 50s, okay? So we were selling one house for $49,900. The other house we were selling for $69,900, okay?
Mm-hmm.
One's $49,900, one's $69,900. We put them both on Facebook the same day, okay? The same day we posted it on Facebook, and this is just Facebook Market. It's not like I did pay-per-click advertising or posted them on groups or anything. This is just Facebook Market under properties for sale, okay? Within 24 hours, okay, the $69,900 house had 600 people, 600 viewers, okay? You with me?
Wow.
The $49,900 house had over 3,000 viewers. So what does that tell you? If it's over 50,000, you're going to get a lot fewer buyers that are even interested in your house. And it's the same town, similar looking houses. They're back to back. You know, there's one's on this street, one's on the other street, but they're back to each other in the same neighborhood, right? But the one that was over 50,000 had a very small percentage of the views that the one that was 49,900. So we've found out and learned over the years, if I can wholesale a house for 50,000 or less, I'm going to have a lot more buyers, and it's going to sell like that.
That's awesome. That's really valuable information you gathered from Facebook.
Yeah.
I think there's a mental barrier. The $50,000 mark is kind of a mental barrier, because even when I ask private money lenders for money, if it's under 50, they're like, oh yeah, I can do that, or I know a guy who can.
Right.
If you start asking for 70, 80, 90, 100, they're like, right. And I think there's something else about $50,000 houses are much easier to make into rental properties,
right?
Too, because there's room to put some work into it. If
you have more options.
$100 a month.
Yeah, you have more options.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. You've got me excited to start doing this, because I'm all about free and cheap marketing channels.
Well, yeah, you've been doing direct mail, so I mean, direct mail's not cheap.
Right.
Neither is pay-per-click, right?
Uh-huh.
No.
And what happens if you can't sell the house? Do you just lose your deposit, or what happens?
That's a great question. So you have about a 30-day window to close, okay? About 30 days to close. So if you don't close, if you back out, you're just going to lose your deposit, okay? That's it. You're going to lose your $500 or $1,000 deposit, okay? Now, what we try to do is we try to get somebody out to look at the property and take pictures before we sign the contract, okay, and send in the deposit. If we back out then, it's not a big deal at all. But if you wait down to that last day and you try to back out of the contract, we're not going to close on this one. I know you keep our deposit, but we're not going to close. They don't like that at all. But who do they give a hard time to? The asset manager is going to go back and give a hard time to the agent, your buyer's agent that put in the bid, right? They're not going to harass you. They're going to harass the buyer's agent, okay? Does that make sense?
It does. So it wouldn't necessarily hurt your chance of getting future deals, but you're kind of screwing over the agent if you did that a bunch of times. So you don't want to do that. I've actually closed on deals. I've closed on deals before that I knew I was either going to make just a small amount of money or break even or maybe even lose a couple bucks just to keep that good reputation going, so they don't flag me or whatever. You know what I mean? Because I want to make sure that I do good, clean business. I do what I say I'm going to do. Now, the only time in the world that you may get your deposit back is if you can show HUD some type of a material fact that happened after you got it under contract. For example, they have the other good thing about HUD, and I forgot to mention this, all HUD houses on their website, when you're looking at the house, they have what's called a PCR. That stands for Property Condition Report, okay? They actually send an inspector out, and the inspector does tests on wiring. Does all the wiring work? Does all the outlets work?
The plumbing, does it hold pressure? They check out the septic system or water supply. They check out the HVAC. Does it work? They check out all the appliances, and they check out the roof and the foundation.
Wow.
Think about this, Brian. That's all the major things. All that's left are fixtures, a carpet, paint, that sort of thing, right? That's the major things. So with a HUD house, you can see all this stuff up front, okay? So to get back on track, if you can show them that something happened afterwards, like for example, let's say the PCR report says that the property is, the wiring is in good condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
You bid on the property, you got it accepted. Before you close, somebody goes out and look at it, right? Right before you close, and all the wiring has been stolen out of it, right?
Uh-huh.
You can either do one of two things. Sometimes they'll compensate you for that, or they'll let you back out and get your deposit back, right?
Wow.
So we had a deal just last month where someone broke in and stole the appliances. And I think it was just a refrigerator and a stove. And I think they gave us, I don't know, $500 or $600 or $700 for that. They just reduced it. They just gave us a rebate at the closing, but they wanted us to go ahead and close, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they just gave us a little rebate at the closing.
Wow. That makes it even cooler, because normally when we put a property under contract, and we're closing on most things nowadays to flip or to hold.
Right.
I send my inspector out there and pay him about $300 to do an inspection before we close. And
Right.
You're telling me that the government has essentially already paid for a professional home inspection to be done ahead of time that you can look at. And of course you can double check. But I feel like if I had that, I could just probably send my contractor out there for a free, repair estimate like they normally do.
Right.
And save $300 on that inspection. Because a lot of times I'll pay for that inspection only to find out that the foundation has got cracks in it. And
Right.
then I don't buy it, and I'm out the $300. So that's really neat. Man, this episode has been so great.
Awesome.
I'm going to go back and listen to this again myself.
Awesome.
Build
That's
this
cool.
system out in my book. In my business. Is there any other final success tips you want to give people for, doing HUD deals?
Yeah, I think so. Just remember, HUD is a daily auction, okay? You've got to bid. You can't bid on one house one time and you don't get it and say, oh my gosh. Like I probably bid on about 150 to 200 houses a day.
Wow.
Okay? But I've got a virtual assistant, and you're big on hiring VAs. I've got a virtual assistant. We pay her close to $5 an hour, and she puts those bids in. It only takes her about 2 hours a day to put the bids in. It's not a big deal. And we use a custom spreadsheet. Our custom spreadsheet allows you can export the spreadsheet from HUD, because when you do a lookup, there's a button there you can click and export the list. And then you import it into yours, and it will merge the two. And then all you got to do is go through there and analyze each deal, right? It's got links to Zillow, links to Trulia for the crime, links to HUD Home Store. It's got all that stuff already built into it. And you can put notes, put your bid amount, and then all you do is share that spreadsheet with your virtual assistant, and then they can spend a couple hours a day putting in the bids for you, and it's not a big deal.
Wow. I hope everybody's listening, because Larry just basically gave you everything you need to implement this system in your business, start doing HUD deals for very little money out of your own pocket. So I hope you guys are taking notes. This is awesome. And Larry, you wrote a book on HUD.
Right.
I know you sell it in different places. Where can the listeners of this show go to grab a copy of that book? Tell us about that.
Sure. If anybody would like a free copy of it, which, by the way, when you get the book, it gives you access to my $4,000 spreadsheet that I hired a guy to create for me, okay? I literally paid the guy $4,000 to create all the macros and everything, so you can push a button. It'll go out to HUD Home Store, pull the list, bring it in, it'll import and merge it all for you, okay? When you have the book, you get the spreadsheet. But we created a special website, freehud.com. freehudbook.com. freehudbook.com. You can get the digital version for free. If you want the physical version, after you opt in to get the digital version, I will ship you the physical version. Just pay shipping. It's like $707 or something is what our actual cost is. But if you want that, that's fine. But otherwise, you can just get the digital version. It's also available on Audible if you want to buy that. But you can get the book absolutely free. freehudbook.com.
That's awesome. So freehudbook.com. We'll put that in the show notes for sure. Again, thank you so much, Larry, for taking your time out of your day to share all this wisdom with everybody for free. It's been really valuable. Do you have any parting thoughts, last words of wisdom before we sign off here?
Awesome. I absolutely do. You know, guys, it's very, very important. Getting education like this from your podcast and stuff like that, it's phenomenal. It's awesome. It's great. But the number one thing you got to do is take action. Take action. Don't just listen to podcasts, buy courses, get books. You got to take action. You got to make offers. When I hear people tell me, you know, hey, Larry, I checked out your stuff or whatever, and it just doesn't work, my first thing I say is, how many offers did you make? Right? Well, I went online, I started looking, and I just don't see any good deals. Well, let me ask you another question. How many offers did you make? Well, I called a couple realtors, and I'm building my buyer's list. Well, let me ask you another question. How many offers did you make, right? The bottom line is the number of houses you buy are going to be in direct proportion to the number of offers you make, right? I don't care if your ratio is 1 in 10 or 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000. Whatever it is, you have a ratio, but you got to make offers. In fact, I tell many, many people the 3 most important things in real estate are make offers, make offers, make offers. That's the 3 most important things in real estate. Without making offers, you're not going to buy any houses. That's a Larry Goins guarantee.
Wow, that is fantastic advice, and you're absolutely right. There's definitely a fear barrier that people have to leap over when they get in this game. Education only gets you so far, and you have to take that leap and put yourself on the line. So thanks so much, Larry. I really appreciate having you on, and have an awesome day. Talk
awesome,
to you soon.
man. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Guys, I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I really do. Grab the book, okay? You get my $4,000 spreadsheet absolutely free. And don't just read the book. Don't just open up the spreadsheet. Start making offers and doing some deals, right? And I want to hear from you about your success stories. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. You'll be hearing from me. Thanks, Larry.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.